Want to save time, money, and your sanity while planning your wedding? Subscribe to Wedding Planning Podcast Premium on Apple Podcasts for early ad-free access to all weekly episodes. Plus, an exclusive bonus series that outlines exactly how to use ChatGPT to your advantage with dedicated meetings for customizing your budget, finding the perfect venue, hiring your vendors, and so much more. Save hours of time, avoid tons of wedding overwhelm, and make confident decisions faster. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts and start planning with clarity. Enjoy the show. Hey there, and thank you so much, as always, for joining me this week on the Wedding Planning Podcast. I hope you are having a wonderful engagement season, and it really means the world to me to share this time with you each week. So thank you again for being here. We have a really fun show today. So here's a quick roadmap of where we're going over the next half hour or so. I have a bunch of your questions to share, and we have a wide range of topics on everything from wearing a bright red suit to thoughtfully managing your wedding day time, blending nostalgic elements into your celebration, inviting children, having guests who have not been invited ask to be invited, so awkward, managing pre-wedding stress, and lots more. Before we get into your questions, I do have a recap from my brother-in-law's wedding celebration that happened just this past weekend. And while everything is super fresh in my memory, I would love to share some key takeaways and a quick recap with you so that you can get an idea of just one type of wedding celebration and what it all looked like from start to finish. I currently live in San Diego with my husband and our two children, but my husband, John, is from Michigan. So all of his family, for the most part, still lives back in Michigan. So my brother-in-law, Michael, married the love of his life. Her name is Laura. And we are so thrilled to welcome Laura into our family. They really are a perfect couple, and I know that's very cliche, but it is true. And this wedding celebration that we just experienced was such a great manifestation of their relationship and of the two of them. It was simple, it was elegant, it was beautiful. So here are some of the details. Their venue was gorgeous. It's called the Royal Park Hotel in Rochester, Michigan. It's within one of the bazillion suburbs that surround the general area of Detroit. So I will leave a link in the show notes if you are in that general area and you would like to check it out. It was absolutely beautiful. So this is kind of a boutique style hotel that is situated along a river. It's made mostly of brick, and they are in the process of renovating all of the rooms inside. It's just beautiful. It feels very elegant and very glamorous. Great color palette of like hunter greens and white, and everything, the aesthetic was just really great. They have guest rooms, so all of the immediate family and many of the guests as well ended up staying there Friday night and Saturday night, which made it so easy and so convenient. Two huge pluses as you're shopping for a venue. If things can all be contained within the same location and the same spot, it just makes for a really relaxing experience from top to bottom for everybody involved. Mike and Laura got engaged in September of 2024. And like I said, they just had their wedding in March of 2025. So we're looking at a really short engagement window of just 6 months or so. And what made this wedding celebration great is that it was pretty simple to plan. So this venue that they chose was I wouldn't call it all inclusive, but they had all the pieces in place for the ceremony site, the reception site, which was the same, one and the same there. And then they had in-house catering and a bar, of course, which just takes that whole question out of the equation. So that's all done for you. And then in terms of other vendors, they had a photographer. They had hair and makeup artists come in the day of the wedding. They also had a wedding coordinator who they hired independently of the venue. There was a live musician who also turned into the DJ. So he was great. He played acoustic guitar and sang. He had a beautiful voice. He sang through the ceremony intro and then throughout the ceremony, also into cocktail hour and dinner. And then after dinner, he shifted gears and became a DJ. So just playing songs by request, and there was dancing. It was great. He did such a nice job. And then they also had a florist who brought in all of the flowers. The rentals were all tied to the hotel. So that was, again, out of the equation, nothing that they had to do any work on there. They opted not to have a videographer, which was a huge cost savings and a decision that they made because they did reach a point where they said they felt like they were just signing checks left and right and spending money left and right. And that was something that was not that important to them. So it was a big element that they were able to just skip and cut out that expense from the whole equation, which is great. Other opportunities they took to save a lot on cost was booking a winter rate. So, this venue specifically, and also kind of venues in general, many of them will offer a discounted rate on an off season. In this case, again, it was a winter rate. And the savings was up to 50% for getting married between January and March, as opposed to during the spring and the summer and fall months, which are much more popular for weddings, and as such, they come at a higher price tag. And then the other big savings opportunity that Mike and Laura took advantage of was keeping their guest count really small and super intimate. So their wedding, including the two of them, was just 60 people. In my book, that is a perfect number of people. And I know everyone has a unique situation with family and friends, and it's not always doable for everybody to keep their guest count down that low at 60. But if you can, and if there are creative ways that you can kind of crunch the numbers and make that happen, it was, again, a great opportunity to save a lot on the cost and also just to keep things super personal and super intimate. And you got to feel like you had a conversation with everybody. It was really, really nice. And then one last element that I'll share with you, they did not have a wedding party at all, and they requested the immediate family to dress within a set color palette so that we could look cohesive in family wedding pictures, which I think is a great idea. That's a question that comes up quite a bit, is requesting that your guests wear a specific color or style. In this case, it did work out to ask the immediate family to kind of stay within that color palette. Oh, and the one last thing I wanted to share, because this comes up a lot too, and we're going to shift into your questions here in just a minute. Inviting children is kind of a hot topic. Mike and Laura invited children of their immediate family only. So Laura's sister brought her 3 children, and my family brought our 2 children, and then my other brother-in-law brought his 4 children. So those were literally the only kids at the wedding. Everyone else was asked to abide by an adults only celebration, which kept the overall head count down and then also kind of kept the children from outnumbering the adults, which as we kind of creep into our late 30s and 40s, trust me, there's a tipping point where all of a sudden it feels like there are more kids than there are grown-ups. So anyway, that was their policy on kids. It worked out great. It was a beautiful wedding. If you are in the general Detroit area and you're looking for a beautiful venue, I can't say enough good things about the Royal Park Hotel. It was a really magical experience, and I will leave a link to that property in the show notes. And shifting gears, let's get into my inbox of your wedding questions. A huge thank you to everyone who was in touch. And if you have a question or a show topic request, I always have an open door and I would love to hear from you. You can head to weddingplanningpodcast.co/contact to submit whatever's on your mind. And I can't wait to hear from you. first question/topic of the day, we have a listener who's looking for some fun ways to incorporate a trend that is being seen out and about. And this is incorporating nostalgia into their wedding celebration. So, nostalgic elements into their entertainment, decor, food and drinks, and of course, the ceremony itself. So, she describes the wedding vibe that they're going for like this: rustic vintage charm with a casual vibe. Our venue is in a historic brick building that has been converted to a brewery. We want to provide some unique entertainment for our guests with fun, interactive elements. I'm thinking maybe some old school games and maybe a home video style confessional. Okay, so this trend of nostalgia is being highlighted on Pinterest right now. And let's take just a minute to define nostalgia. What is nostalgic to you depends a lot on your generation and also your personal experiences and history and taste. I personally was born in the 80s, and while I was way too young to be into 80s music as it was actually coming out in the 80s, I do have the best memories of some of those songs playing during family trips and dinners and parties. My dad had a turntable record player that always had Fleetwood Mac, Tom Petty, Beatles albums spinning. So to this day, hearing any of that music just brings me back to my childhood. My dad and I actually danced to the song Wildflowers by Tom Petty at my wedding, which was a really multi-layered, meaningful touch. So, this same idea of nostalgia, this can go for certain foods, candy, movies, board games. The list goes on, and what is nostalgic to you may not be remotely so for another person. So, for step one here, incorporating nostalgic elements, I would, as I've just kind of shared my own examples of things that are nostalgic to me, I would suggest sitting down with your partner and brainstorming some of the specific memories and things that kind of ring that nostalgia bell for the two of you. And to get started, you can think of songs, movies, games, food, candies, places, maybe scents. Scents, as in a specific smell. Those can all bring back really, really deep memories. Another one for me would be soda in a can. So Mountain Dew, Mellow Yellow, Grape Crush, and Orange Crush. If you put any of those sodas down in front of me, my sister, or any of my cousins, automatically in an instant, we would all say that it reminds us of being in the playhouse in my grandma and grandpa's backyard back in Minnesota as we were growing up. So, those are kind of the things that we're talking about here when we think about nostalgia. So, next step, when you're feeling creative, take your list that you and your partner came up with, and now we can start to plug these elements into some of the various categories of your wedding celebration to really, really personalize it and start to incorporate those nostalgic elements. So, things to consider, some different categories here, and I'll run through them quickly. First category would be your music and entertainment. This is a pretty easy one. So, music, like I mentioned before, can be very nostalgic. Pick out your favorite 10 to 20 songs and incorporate those in a playlist. I think it's always fun to kind of flip flop between contemporary music and also those old school favorites and kind of flip flop back and forth so that there's something for everyone on your playlist. In terms of entertainment, a really fun, unique, it's a keepsake and it's also actual entertainment during your reception, is to do a video confessional booth. John and I did this at our wedding and it was so much fun. So essentially, all you need to do is set up a little area with, you can make it vintage or cute or cozy, uh, twinkle lights, big pillows, whatever you want to do. The point of this space is the guests sit down and they record a message or a funny video for you and your new husband or wife. And you have this video at the end of everybody going into the confessional and leaving you. I mean, they can be super serious, they can be super silly. We had a little bit of both. These are incorporated into the video of our wedding, and it's one of my favorite parts of the entire video was watching our loved ones leave those messages. After someone has a couple of drinks, again, trust me, these get really, really fun. And then a bonus here in your little video confessional corner is you can provide some cards with prompts. So, like to get ideas flowing, you could have, for example, share your best marriage advice or tell a funny memory, a funny story about the couple. The sky is the limit here, but again, this is a really, really fun way to provide an entertainment option at your reception, but also take away a great, just completely priceless keepsake of your day at the end. And last bit here, because I just really love this idea, if you couldn't tell. Last pro like bonus here is if you are not hiring a videographer, this is a really great way to get some dedicated video clips that are super easy for anyone to take and edit into a longer video style keepsake of your wedding day. Okay, and then last bit here on entertainment, incorporating nostalgic elements would be to create like an old school game corner where you had some vintage, either like a vintage video game station would be fun, vintage board games, old school giant Jenga is a good one. People could write messages on the blocks, and that could become like your guest book. That's also a functional keepsake that you can use over and over. And then, of course, there's the ever favorite cornhole, giant Scrabble, Clue, checkers, any kind of little board game corner would be fun. Also, if you're having kids at your wedding, that would be a great way to keep them entertained. So, those are some music and entertainment ideas for incorporating nostalgia. Next, let's move to visual, like decoration ideas. One would be a photo memory wall. So here you could display wedding photos from your family members' weddings throughout their generations. You could display old family movies on a projector screen. That would be super fun and really cute to see little mini versions of you and your spouse when you were little kids. Disposable cameras are always fun. Polaroid style Instax cameras put on the tables where guests can take a picture and the film comes right out right there. This would be a fun creative guest book idea as well if you had like a Polaroid photo booth where people could pose for a picture, write a note on the picture, and then you could somehow collect and bind all of those together. Very, very sweet. Okay, next area we can incorporate nostalgia would be food and drinks. What are some of the food and drinks that are nostalgic and memorable to you and your partner? Incorporate those into a dessert table, into an old school snack cart. That would be really fun with like pretzels and popcorn, vintage candy. You could have that set up even as like a takeaway favor bar type idea. You can incorporate your signature drinks into this category. So, craft a few fun drinks that are named after significant moments in your relationship or in your past, and then serve them in a fun glass or a fun jar. Make a cute bar sign. That would be a great way to kind of express that nostalgic element. This theme lends itself to a great rehearsal dinner as well. So, for rehearsal dinner, you could use family recipes as the theme, and then you could serve old family recipes that have been passed down through the generations from both sides. And I think it would be fun to have those kind of blended and mixed together. Very, very meaningful and a really affordable way to have your friends and your family pitch in and kind of create this joint potluck style rehearsal dinner. And then last category here, to incorporate nostalgia into your ceremony. What are some ways of doing this? I like using readings during the ceremony to kind of incorporate. You could use poetry or quotes that you, your parents, or grandparents used in their ceremonies. That's a meaningful way of weaving things together. You could also ask your parents or your grandparents, if they're still with us, to write you a letter that they could stand up and read during the ceremony, kind of in place of a traditional reading. That's a really, really sweet way to kind of incorporate both sides of your families and have them be an active participant in the ceremony itself. And then handwritten vows to one another on pretty parchment paper is kind of an old school nostalgic thing. And that is not only a really, really priceless moment of reading those to one another during your ceremony, but those written vows could also be a really great keepsake going forward. You could have them framed and displayed, and it would be a great memory of the day. All right, so those are some of my thoughts on nostalgia. There's a ton more. That's kind of what I came up with. Have fun with this. I do think this overall theme of incorporating nostalgic elements is a really great way to make your wedding celebration super personalized. If we're trying to steer away from cookie cutter traditions and ceremonies that everybody does, this is a great way to make things truly, truly unique. So have fun with it. Okay, switching gear, totally different topic. I'm going to play another question from a listener for you right
About
now.
what to actually do at my wedding, which sounds goofy, but I see all these suggestions that my fiance and I spend every waking moment of the wedding together and just don't forget it's about the two of you, enjoy it together. And I want to balance that sentiment with also knowing that we're each going to have our own individual friends and family with whom we're going to want to take the opportunity to chat, and they all want to thank us and support us in that way. And how can you help us in sort of guiding that conversation where we decide together what we want our priorities to be for spending those less structured times of our wedding so that the night doesn't end with us realizing we had different priorities or we had different expectations.
This is such a great question and such a great thought. So if you're multitasking, come back to me. It is so smart to be mindfully and proactively anticipating stuff like this while you're in the planning phases. Talking and thinking about how you're going to spend your time during your celebration and getting on the same page with your partner about that is going to maximize your overall enjoyment of this whole event by 1,000-fold. So I'm so, so happy that you're thinking about this now. In terms of how to prioritize the time, that's going to be a conversation that the two of you should sit down and have right now. You mentioned that your wedding is about 4 months away, and this is the perfect time to get dialed in together and to make sure that you have the same vision so that, like you said, you're not missing opportunities to spend your time thoughtfully in those moments. Sometimes when we get in the moment of a celebration, it's just like a runaway train, and all kind of intentionality and thought can kind of get pushed aside just because you're swept up in like the immediacy of things happening one thing after another after another. So sit down together with your partner and make a joint plan that says, here's an outline, here is our shared intention of how we want to spend our time during our wedding with all of our loved ones. In terms of what that actually means for the two of you, there's no right or wrong answer. If the two of you want to escape for, a 6-hour chunk in the middle of this camping wedding, that and go on a hike together or just spend time together away from everyone else, that's totally fine. If the two of you want to just blend and completely immerse yourselves in all of your friends and family, that's amazing too. There's not a right or wrong way to spend the time, just so long as the two of you have a shared expectation for how you want that to look, and make sure to get that dialed in right now. It's so smart of you to be thinking about that. I hope this answer is helpful, and I am sending you all the best wishes. Camping wedding speaks to my heart big time. So have so much fun, and please be in touch and let us know how it goes. Okay, next question come. This is a timeless one, inviting people who are not invited to the wedding. And this came in a couple of different formats, so I'm going to kind of summarize here. One couple has some family members who are behaving badly and asking for additional invites. How should we handle their awkward and inappropriate requests? Awkward and inappropriate indeed. And keeping your response super simple and super streamlined is my recommendation. So, for example, the response could be, we have limited space available and our venue cannot accommodate 3 more people, period. It's as simple as that. You don't need to bring money into it. It's not your job to explain or apologize or get into a long, drawn out justification. You have already made arrangements and you cannot accommodate any additional guests. And in my opinion, that's all the explanation that's required. And then another variation of this same theme is children. Again, a topic that comes up over and over again. We have out of town guests who cannot or do not want to make babysitting arrangements, and they are asking for an exception for their kids to come to the wedding. How should we handle this? Again, awkward and inappropriate are the 2 descriptors that come to mind. Depending on how close your relationship is with these people who are requesting this, for example, if this were my sister or a very, very close friend of mine and they were reluctant, or maybe their kids were young, super young, and not really used to hiring babysitters or being with a babysitter, I could see myself offering to research or kind of use my network to find some local babysitting possibilities and to be really hands on in helping them make that happen. Whether or not you choose to extend that courtesy is entirely up to you. I definitely don't think it's your responsibility to source a babysitter for every single one of your guests. And if that's not something that your invited guest is comfortable managing on their own, then unfortunately, they may just need to decline your wedding invitation. Because again, you and your partner have made a decision to not invite children or to only invite select children. And a guest who can't respect that and make arrangements to respect that should just probably not come to the wedding. Not an easy conversation, not an easy situation. I totally get it. It's easier said than done. Just be candid and forthcoming. And like I said in the first portion of this little section, it's not your job to explain or apologize your decisions. This is your wedding, and it's other people's responsibility to respect the things that you want to have happen. And that's the end of it. And then, last one for today, we have a listener who writes, all the big stuff is done, but I have no motivation for all the little last minute stuff. I'm not stressed at all, just not motivated. Help. Oh, I hear you, and I know everyone else listening hears you as well. Here's a list of some of the things that creep up towards the end when you might just be kind of over it and starting to lose steam about planning this whole wedding. Some of the things that still need to be done: make final decisions on flowers, decorations, table arrangements. Wedding signage is a big one. Submitting your final numbers and your seating chart, collecting those final RSVPs from people who have neglected to respond on time, sending out invitations, finalizing your ceremony readings and your vows, making a day of timeline, final dress alterations and fittings, getting a song list to your DJ, getting a shot list to the photographer. It can feel never ending. And yes, I know that things can kind of start to just grind at the end and feel overwhelming and annoying, and you're just getting to be kind of done with it. So, here are some tips for how to handle those last few weeks of like crushing to do list stuff. Number one is get yourself organized. And the best way that I know how to do this is just to carve out some time to dump a list of everything that you have left to do. Get a pen and a paper, notepad on your phone, however you want to keep track of it. Just brainstorm, literally dump it out, get it out on paper, all the stuff that you still need to do. Your next step is review that list. Is there anything on there that can be deleted or just omitted? Like you can just cross it off and not do it, and no one will notice, no one will miss it. It won't be the end of the world. So, for example, some of the topics from what I just listed: wedding signage. Do you really need 6 different wedding signs, or could you scale it back to just 2? Ceremony readings. Do you need to do ceremony readings, period? Could you just make your ceremony 6 minutes shorter and not do any readings? Wedding favors. Is anyone going to miss if we don't order wedding favors? Probably not. You could probably just cross those things off your list. Every time you cross something off, it's one less thing you have to do. Obviously, some of this stuff is essential and can't just be crossed off. So, next step, what on that list can be delegated? What can you pass off to a friend or a family member or a loved one? A question that comes up a lot is that people are asking me to help, but I don't know what to give them to do. So think back to someone who has asked you in the past, hey, how can I help you? Dial them up and put them to work by delegating some of these last minute things and getting it off your plate. Next move here, if you're feeling underwater with all the vendor follow up, the timeline construction, tying together loose ends, and if you have it in your budget, consider hiring a month of coordinator to help with all this stuff. I won't say it's never too late because depending on your market, there might not be availability. But I know and talk with an awful lot of couples who make a decision at the pretty last minute that, like, hey, we do need help. We want to hire a coordinator, even though our wedding is just a couple months away, and they are able to find someone to hire. So, especially if you have more money than time, this can be a huge lifesaver. Okay, you pay 1,500 bucks or $2,000, you meet with someone, you dump off everything that's stressing you out, and then they handle it all. Magic. And then last part for this question is just a little bit of encouragement. Just keep your eye on the finish line. Your wedding day is coming up. It's really close. It's going to be so special, and you are almost there. So lean on your partner, lean on your loved ones to help you out in these final few weeks, and just try to get focused on how exciting this unforgettable celebration is going to be. Okay, that wraps it up for today. Thank you again to everybody who was in touch, and we will talk again soon.